Hola, damas y caballeros. This lesson, we're going to be dealing with two new verbs, tener and the verb ir. We're going to use tener, which means to have, for another purpose that we will explain further on in the lesson. And the verb ir, which means to go. So we're going to be going places. So we'll be getting the forms of ir as well as the forms of tener, plus places, plus means of transportation. And we will have un repaso of several things that we've covered recently in class. Remember, every infinitive, every basic form of a verb in Spanish ends with R, and that we saw three types, AR, ER, and IR verbs. Bailar, bailar. Ella baila con su amiga. Ella baila con su amiga. Beber, beber. Ella bebe un refresco. Ella bebe un refresco. Leer, leer. Ella lee el periódico. Vivir, vivir. El hombre vive en California. El hombre vive en California. Escribir, escribir. El señor escribe en el papel. El señor escribe en el papel. Hablar por teléfono. Hablar por teléfono. Mi mamá habla por teléfono. Mi mamá habla por teléfono. Textear, textear. María textea en su teléfono a su amiga. María textea en su teléfono a su amiga. Su is her or his, amiga. Correr, correr. Los hombres corren en la ciudad. Los hombres corren en la ciudad. Comprender, comprender. El muchacho comprende la lección. El muchacho comprende la lección. Aprender, aprender. Yo aprendo mucho en la clase de español. Yo aprendo mucho en la clase de español. Trabajar, trabajar. El hombre trabaja mucho hoy. El hombre trabaja mucho hoy. La señora cocina en la casa. La señora cocina en la casa. Estudiar, estudiar. La niña estudia en su casa. La niña estudia en la noche en su casa. Comer, comer. La niña come mucho. La niña come mucho. The next few slides are going to show you some regular verbs that we've seen, both AR, ER, and IR verbs, hablar, comer, vivir, and others, just as a review of the endings. And remember, verbs have to agree with the subject. So whoever is doing those, we need to change the ending to match the subject. As we compared the ER and the IR verbs in the simple present, we saw that 4 of the 5 forms are exactly the same. The only one that's different is nosotros, so you'll need to remember that. Nosotros for the ER is EMOS ending. Nosotros for IR verbs like vivir is IMOS ending. We saw that there are 2 ways in Spanish, and this week we're going to learn a third way to say to be. So that being the case, we need to not only learn the forms, the 5 forms for ser and the 5 forms for estar, but we also need to know when you use ser. So what are the uses of ser and what are the uses of estar? So we will know when in our head we're thinking up a sentence that requires to be, such as I am tall, we would need to know whether we use ser or whether we use estar. So we saw the 5 forms of ser. We need to use the correct form of ser based on which subject it is. And then these are the purposes. We saw the purposes or the situations in which you would use ser to express the idea of to be. professions, origin, possession, description, the date, the time. When you're in those circumstances in your head in English and want to say a sentence in Spanish, you know that you go down the road for ser, the correct form of ser for those sentences in those circumstances. The verb estar is used in fewer circumstances. We had told you initially that it was for feelings, and then we added location. So if you're telling where someone is located, as opposed to where they're from is origin, and that is ser. But if you're talking about where they are located, you're going to use estar. If you're talking about how someone feels, as opposed to what they look like or what their personality is, you will use the verb estar, the correct form of the 5 that are available. For the comida and bebida, as a review, we'll go through these, but I will also add a sentence in which I'm using the particular vocabulary item just to give you a context and for you to hear more Spanish in a useful, communicative circumstance. La leche. La leche. El muchacho bebe mucha leche. Le gusta la leche. El vino. El vino. Ella bebe mucho vino hoy. Ella bebe mucho vino hoy. El agua. El agua. Hay un vaso de agua en la mesa. Hay un vaso de agua en la mesa. Mesa is table. Me gusta mucho el jugo de naranja. El jugo. Me gusta mucho el jugo de naranja. En Miami hay mucho jugo de naranja. En Miami hay mucho jugo de naranja. En la sopa hay muchas verduras. En la sopa hay muchas verduras. La sopa. La sopa. El pan. El pan. Yo como pan todos los días. Every day. Yo como pan todos los días. La ensalada. La ensalada. Ella come una ensalada los lunes, miércoles y viernes. Ella come una ensalada los lunes, miércoles y viernes. La muchacha come un sándwich enorme. La muchacha come un sándwich enorme. Yo como el yogur en la mañana. Yo como el yogur en la mañana. El yogur. El yogur. El cereal. El cereal. Me gusta el cereal con leche. Me gusta el cereal con leche. La carne. Excepción, la carne. El profesor no come carne porque él es un vegetariano. El profesor no come la carne porque él es un vegetariano. El queso. El queso. El queso es de leche y es bueno para los sándwiches. El queso es de leche y es bueno para los sándwiches. El plátano. El plátano. Me gustan los plátanos en el cereal. Me gustan los plátanos en el cereal. Las verduras. Las verduras. Es una buena idea comer verduras. Es una buena idea comer muchas verduras. Buena idea is a good idea. Es una buena idea comer muchas verduras. La papa. La papa. La papa es una verdura no muy grande. La papa es una verdura no muy grande. La zanahoria. La zanahoria. Las zanahorias son anaranjadas. Las zanahorias son anaranjadas. Los tomates. El tomate. Los tomates. Los tomates son buenos para los sándwiches y para las ensaladas. Los tomates son buenos for los sándwiches y las ensaladas. La lechuga. La lechuga. La lechuga es verde. La lechuga es verde. La lechuga es buena para las ensaladas. La lechuga es buena para las ensaladas. El brócoli. El brócoli. El brócoli. Also, el brécol. Yo como mucho brócoli. Yo como mucho brócoli. Ella come el maíz con el gato. Miau. Ella come el maíz con el gato. El gato, gato, kitty cat, gato. La cebolla. La cebolla. El pepino. El pepino. Mi amigo y yo somos de Cuba. Mi amigo y yo somos de Cuba. Ellas llevan trajes de baño y sombreros. Ellas llevan trajes de baño y sombreros. Yo no estoy bien. Yo no estoy bien. Estoy enferma. Estoy enferma. Tú llevas una camisa roja. Tú llevas una camisa roja. Son las 5 de la tarde. Son las 5 de la tarde. Los hombres están muy enojados. Los hombres están muy enojados. So here we see los hombres is our subject. The form of estar needs to go with los hombres. We're using estar because it is a feeling, and we're making enojados agree with los hombres, masculine, plural. All the things you have to think about. Usted es antipático. Usted es antipático. Something you would say if this guy happened to be your boss. You would use usted and you would use es because you're describing his personality. El doctor come una manzana y pan. El doctor come una manzana y pan. Nosotros bebemos leche con las galletas. Nosotros bebemos leche con las galletas. Mi amiga y yo estamos en la clase. Mi amiga y yo estamos en la clase. We have a plural subject, mi amiga y yo. I'm included, therefore we have to go with the nosotros ending of estar. Clase is class, obviously, and it is una excepción, la clase. Mi amiga y yo estamos en la clase. Me gusta bailar y me gustan los tomates. Me gusta bailar y me gustan los tomates. Gustan because tomates is plural. Mis zapatos están aquí. Mis zapatos están aquí. Location. Ellos hablan mucho. Ellos hablan mucho. Using ellos because we have a man and two females. Ellos hablan mucho. Mi amigo y yo somos muy trabajadores. Mi amigo y yo somos muy trabajadores. Talking about our personality, we're hardworking. Mi amigo y yo somos muy trabajadores, and that's why we're using a form of ser. Yo estoy aburrida. Yo estoy aburrida. Las zapatillas son rosadas. Las zapatillas son rosadas. Es el 25 de diciembre. Es el 25 de diciembre. Las chicas son muy fuertes. Las chicas son muy fuertes. Using a form of ser because we're describing them in kind of a personality or physical trait. Mi familia viaja a Guatemala en el verano. Mi familia viaja a Guatemala en el verano. So tener often means to have, such as to have a book, to have enough food, etc. And you would have 5 forms of tener to express the idea of to have. But there are certain expressions in which we use tener to explain how people feel. Because we're talking about how people feel, that's another way to say that is how they are. And are is, of course, a form of to be. So we're saying that these tener expressions are another way to express in Spanish the verb to be. But only in these special circumstances. Tener usually means to have. And you will soon see that tener is different than the regular verbs. Comer is a regular verb. We talked about the 5 endings, but we notice that you take comer, C-O-M. C-O-M does not change in any of these. You keep that same format of the infinitive, and then you just change the ending. Look at the 5 forms of tener, however, we see something strange going on with the yo form. You add a go ending, and then we have what are called stem changing steps, in which you change the ten to tien. And then you put on your regular er verb endings that we've already learned for a verb like comer or beber. And we use the regular endings. What is irregular is what you do to the stem, changing from e to ie. And you want to call attention to the fact that the stem changing happens only in the to the la ya usted, and in the plural ellos ellas ustedes. It does not change in nosotros. So that's just like comer, tenemos, comemos. And then we have the weird thing happening with go in the yo form. So these are all the things you have to remember. You just have to learn them to be able to use this particular verb, very common verb, correctly. And as you use it more, like anything, you will get more adept at doing so. Tener prisa. Tener prisa. So I'm going to take that and put it in a sentence. Mario tiene, conjugating the verb tener, it's changing the stem, putting on the E ending because it's Mario. Mario tiene prisa en la escuela. Mario tiene prisa en la escuela, at school. Tener razón, tener razón. Mi esposa siempre tiene razón. Mi esposa, my wife, siempre, always, tiene razón. Tener miedo, tener miedo. Tener sueño, tener sueño. Tener cuidado, tener cuidado. Tener hambre, tener hambre. Tener sed, tener sed. Tener suerte, tener suerte. Tener frío, tener frío. Yo tengo frío en el invierno. Yo tengo frío en el invierno. Tener calor, tener calor. Ella tiene calor en el verano. Ella tiene calor en el verano. We use tener ganas to feel like, often with a verb after de in the infinitive. So we say something like, yo tengo ganas de trabajar, which is literally, I feel like working. Tengo ganas de trabajar. So we can pull out trabajar and put in, if you feel like eating, yo tengo ganas de comer. And we express the age with the tener expression and then the years. We don't use a form of ser. We don't say yo soy 15 as we do in English. I am 15. You say yo tengo 15 años. Yo tengo 15 años. In this lesson, we will use the 5 forms of the verb go, ir, to express a place where we're going. So we will be learning some vocabulary for places. We'll show you how to do that. And then eventually at the end, we'll teach you how to say how you're traveling, modes of transportation. So you can combine those 3 things. It is definitely an irregular verb, whereas hablar, comer, and the other verbs we had learned up to tener are regular verbs. So we have to learn what these special changes are for the verb ir. Ir has boy, which may remind us of soy, as we had in ser in the yo form. But then it acts like it's an AR verb. You'll notice these endings, these 4 remaining endings, are just like the endings you used for hablar, caminar, trabajar, for the regular AR verbs, even though ir is not an AR verb. La ciudad, la ciudad. El hospital, el hospital. Remember the H is silent in Spanish always. El banco, el banco. Note that banco is a place, but it is also a noun, so it will be either masculine or feminine. Banco happens to be masculine, that's why we have el here. La ciudad is feminine, and that will become important. Whether these nouns are masculine or feminine will become important as we put sentences together. La iglesia, la iglesia. La tienda, la tienda is any type of store or shop. El centro comercial, el centro comercial. I'm going to combine the previous tienda slide and say in this sentence, en el centro comercial hay muchas tiendas. En el centro comercial hay, which is there is or there are, muchas tiendas. There are 2 ways to say school. La escuela, la escuela. El colegio, el colegio. And colegio is not college. Another silent H, el hotel, el hotel. El parque, el parque. El restaurante, el restaurante. El cine, el cine. La biblioteca, la biblioteca. La panaderia, la panaderia. I'm going to call attention to the suffix eria here. Anytime you see that suffix in Spanish, eria, it's indicating some sort of store or business establishment where something is made or done, sold, etc. It's a you put it with words that indicate whatever the specialty of that store might be. For example, here the specialty happens to be pan, but you have other types of stores where you use this eria, and for example, carniceria is a place where they sell carne. That would be another example. So you will be out and about in Latin America or Spain, and you will see that suffix, and you know that that's indicating a store. La universidad, la universidad. Casa, casa. Casa is home or house. Some example sentences. María va a la biblioteca. María va a la biblioteca. Tú vas a la iglesia. Tú vas a la iglesia. Ella va al banco. Ella va al banco. Yo voy al restaurante. And we need to talk about what we do here. When the place is feminine, like biblioteca and iglesia in the first two sentences, we say a la. When the place, banco, restaurante, in these two cases, is masculine, you combine a plus el. It becomes what is a contraction. It is a contraction in Spanish without an apostrophe, and they give you no choice in the matter. So every time in a sentence a and el might come together, you have to say al. So ella va al, not a el, like we do a la, no. Al banco. Yo voy al restaurante. One special circumstance. A means to, by the way. That's what we're doing here. A, to, the is ala, and to the, if it's masculine, is al. There is one case in which we don't use the article, the definite article. We just say voy a casa, not voy a la casa. Voy a casa. Ella va a casa. And the next few slides are just giving us some ways to travel, to go to these places that we've just learned. So, el avión, el avión, carro, el carro, el coche, el coche, la bicicleta, la bicicleta, which gets shortened to la bici, as we do bike, la bici or la bicicleta. El tren, el tren. El bus, el bus. El metro, el metro. A pie, a pie, which literally means on foot or by foot. A pie. And 3 sample sentences here. María va en coche. María va en coche. Ellos van en avión. Ellos van en avión. Vamos en bici. Vamos en bici. And then at the end of these, we could add a destination. For example, María va en coche a la biblioteca. María va en coche a la biblioteca. Ellos van en avión a Cuba. Ellos van en avión a España. Nosotros vamos en bici a la tienda. Nosotros vamos en bici a la tienda. For exercise, you would say a sentence like this. Yo voy a pie. Yo voy a pie. And then if you wanted to add a destination, you could say, yo voy a pie al hospital. Yo voy a pie a casa. Just a few more sample sentences. Ustedes van. So we're putting the form of ir in the correct form based on ustedes. Ustedes van al banco, al because it's masculine, the place, en carro. Ustedes van al banco en carro. Tú vas a la universidad en bus. Tú vas a la universidad en bus. Yo voy a casa en tren. Yo voy a casa en tren. Our key questions here that deal with the set of vocabulary that we've learned in this lesson is ¿A dónde vas? ¿A dónde vas? Where are you going? And the response, voy al banco. Voy al banco. And ¿Cómo vas? ¿Cómo vas? How are you going? How are you going? How are you going to get there? Voy en bici. Voy en bici.